Hello world. So this is where I'm at. I think it might be a good idea to start off with a bit of clarification about why this relates to stress and depression. Um, it's because I haven't really been diagnosed with anything yet. I am currently, I suppose, being diagnosed. Um, I went to my doctor. I suppose that's at this point months ago, a month or two, and she was definitely of the opinion that I could be stressed. Like that seemed super plausible to her. Um, she also had a suspicion that I might be depressed. And the problem with diagnosing those two things is that a lot of the symptoms are very similar. The major difference from a, shall we say, experience point of view is that stress seems to be conditioned on what you're experiencing right now, whereas depression can be a little more ingrained in your mind. Not saying you can't get out of either, but the problem is that one will require a treatment pertaining to your immediate area, your immediate surroundings, and the other one requires treatment that goes up here. So for now, I definitely have stress. I might also have depression. We're still trying to figure that one out. I have started medicating myself. I am taking serotonin. I have started in moment of recording. That's 4 days ago. I don't know if it's the pills causing me to feel better, but I'm in a I've had a good couple of days. Feeling better than I have for a while now. The pills are supposed to take effect after a couple of weeks, but the tricky thing with pills is that they vary so much from person to person. Some people experience severe side effects. I haven't had any of that yet. Other people experience nothing but upside. Other people experience a mixture where they then have to weigh the side effects worse than the actual symptoms. Do I need to change the dose? I started off with the smallest dose. And yeah, like I said, what's really tricky is trying to figure out what is the medicine and what is me in this. Because if I'm feeling better about the medicine, well, then I shouldn't take it. But if it's the medicine helping me feel better, then, well, I need to take this until I can figure out how to deal with the rest of these symptoms. And for the time being, the plan is not for me to take this indefinitely. The plan is that I am supposed to feel so much better that I can take care of myself, at which point I can cure myself, or at least approximate curing myself. And after that has been done, I can then wean off the medicine. It's been a really tough decision to figure out whether or not I should go on medicine. It's a consideration that has popped up every now and so often. My wife has on occasion pushed me in that direction. I think I've been very hesitant for a lot of different reasons. I've seen a lot of other friends and acquaintances dealing with a lot of side effects, and I've been very scared of those side effects. And I am also very much struggling with the whole I can't figure out what's me and what's the medicine. That I don't like having to deal with that. But for the time being, I can definitely say that it's been a good call. Now, there is no such thing as a jinx, so I can't possibly jinx this. But right now, I'm doing a lot better, and I think this is a good path to treatment for me. I'm still looking for a shrink, trying to figure out how to find one that will suit my needs. I've been to two in the past, trying to figure out whether I should start with a new one or if I should try to arrange something with the one I saw last time I felt sick. But for the time being, I'm trying to take one thing at a time. So it just made sense to me to, okay, first let's deal with medicine and then let's look at this other thing later. There's no reason to overwhelm me since I'm already dealing with stress. So why put more load on an already broken leg? But yeah, that's where I'm at. That's how the treatment is going. So with that said, here's something that makes me happy. I've been a fan of Spider-Man for as long as I can remember. I don't think there's no memory of me being introduced to Spider-Man. He just has always, from my point of view, existed in my brain, and of course that means that he has had a phenomenal impact upon my development in various ways. As a kid, what I fell in love with was probably just that I thought his power set was incredibly cool. Um, I loved the acrobatics. I loved how powerful and graceful he looked in movement, both in comic books and in the 90s animated cartoon, which is the one I grew up with. And I wanted to web sling so badly. When school was done, sometimes I would go to this gym, and I would just get the ropes out in the gym and then set up some. They're supposed to be used for obstacle courses, but I just wanted to swing back and forth and get the impression that I was Spider Man because I was a nerd from a very young age, and I mean even now. When I can't sleep, I sometimes try to calm myself and get into a mood of sleeping by just closing my eyes and then really try to vividly imagine what it's like to swing through a skyscraper landscape. Just try to get the physics of it. So web slinging is just so cool in my mind. Like it's sort of the default pause mode whenever I need to think of something soothing. And all of that because of Spider-Man. And to top it off, I also love the utility of the web. You can incapacitate your enemies. You can use it to get a hold of objects. You can use it to close doors with, or open doors with, for that matter. Another way that he has also influenced me is he doesn't always beat his opponents just by punching them. He also defeats them by outwitting them or by outsciencing them, which I was so fascinated by as a child, and probably one of the reasons why I became even more of a nerd than I already was. His power set is definitely what caught my attention when I was but a lad. But when I grew up, what really attracted me was how interesting he is as a character. He inhabits a surprisingly unique role in the superhero pantheon. In that he is one of those heroes who is, I mean, he has superpowers, but beyond that, he is just a guy. Though he actually has a life outside of his superhero persona. He wants to advance in his school. He wants to get his career going. He wants to date girls, all the while balancing his superhero responsibilities. Choose that word, you know why. And if you really think about it, that's kind of rare. Like when you think of the big trio of superheroes, you got Superman and Batman and Spider-Man, like in terms of popular culture pantheon. And Superman doesn't really seem to struggle that much. Sometimes the story will focus on that, but mostly his stories are about how the world reacts to Superman. Batman is just a guy, but other than being Batman, he's a billionaire, billionaire, and as power creep is a thing with comic book characters, he only gets richer. Um, Peter is kind of a loser when he's not Spider-Man, or at least he's just a guy who's continuously is down on his luck and trying to get back on his feet again, uh, whilst incidentally also being a superhero. Then you also have the aspect that he's not actually motivated by what superheroes are typically motivated by. He's motivated by guilt. He's motivated by his moral failing of letting a burglar escape, which then led to the death of his uncle. And that moral failure kind of defines a lot of what I think makes him interesting as a superhero. He he's exactly so bad a person that he will on occasion do the wrong thing, but he's exactly so good a person that he knows he should do better, and whenever he fails he does feel bad about it, which I think is how most of us live. Like, a lot of us probably can do better than what we're doing, and we know we ought to, and that's a struggle we have to continuously deal with. Once you're at the moral god level of a character like Superman, you don't really struggle with that anymore. You just do the right thing. If you look at what the Spider-Man mantle is about, that applies to all the people who carry the Spider-Man mantle. Like, that's the same thing Miles Morales deals with, most recently in Into the Spider-Verse. It's also what Spider-Gwen deals with, if you have ever read those comics. If you haven't, I highly recommend them. They're great. And yeah, he's unique. He is not motivated by revenge. And that struggle between doing what you want and doing what you ought to do is just quintessential to the best Spider-Man stories. Like this right here.
Let die the woman you love, or suffer the little children. We are who we choose to be. Now choose!
That's a Spider-Man moment. That's a Spider-Man choice. That's a Spider-Man story. And I think that's why those movies managed to catch fire. It's perhaps hard to remember now, but those movies were a defining feature of the blockbuster landscape for a while. It seems crazy with the superhero movies we have now, but yeah, those were the pinnacle of blockbuster superheroes back in the day, and they lodged into the popular conscience for reasons, I think. Spider-Man can be a lot of fun, just viscerally. Like, his power sets are cool, he is a figure that can make for an awful lot of really cool action scenes. But once you're done having surface level fun like that and you want to dig a little deeper, there is some real compelling human drama underneath all of that. There are some relatable lessons to what it's like having to struggle with doing the right thing. And he is just so incredibly human in spite of his spectacular circumstances because of that feature. So I can't imagine a time where I won't be a huge Spider-Man fan, and I'm excited to see that he's still a part of the popular culture, and I look forward to see where he continues to develop in culture from that point of view. Last time, meaning the first episode of this, I gave a vertical slice of what my symptoms are like, and I thought it was a good way to start off because I think one of the greatest difficulties in struggling with mental illnesses is discovering that you have them. We're almost programmed to not recognize them as illnesses. It's almost like they have a self-preservation instinct, and they try to keep themselves hidden. So realizing that you're sick and that you need some form of medicine, not necessarily literal, we covered that last time, but some form of healthcare is incredibly difficult for that exact reason. So I thought it was it's where you start, but a consequence of that was that I listed off a lot of symptoms that I had, and I didn't really go into depth about any of them. So with that in mind, I'm gonna go a little more into depth with one of them. It's sort of related to what I last time called the impossible task. Small tasks, tiny things you have to do in your daily life can become incredibly taxing when you are struggling with stress and with depression. They fill up so much more of your mind, and I experience becoming paralyzed by how much space they take up. It's if I find often it's useful to compare to physical events. So if you imagine that you are you're being crushed underneath a rock, you're lying down and the rock is crushing down on you. The thing you need to do in order to get out from that rock, short term, is you need to push it off of you. But the rock is so heavy that it's difficult to do. So the cure for this one thing is the one thing you can't do right now. If you apply that to a mental experience, that's what the impossible task can feel like. The only difference is what to you feels like a giant boulder would normally just be a pebble. And it can be a little humiliating to lie flat on your back with nothing holding you down other than a pebble on your chest. But it feels like a boulder. There is some shame in being in that situation. You shouldn't feel shameful. That doesn't mean you don't. And I say you, I mean, I don't know what you're dealing with, but I know I shouldn't feel shameful because of that. But knowing that and feeling differently is often two different worlds. This relates to a phenomenon I refer to as when my world becomes very, very tiny. Dealing with daily life for me involves a lot of latering. You know, I'll do this later, I'll do this later, I'll do this later. It involves a lot of cutting tasks down to their smallest component parts. So I need to leave the apartment. Okay, in order to leave the apartment, I need to find my jacket. I'm going shopping, so I need to find my wallet, and I'm going out the door, which means I need to get my keys. Each of those can be a pebble that feels like a boulder. It can be really difficult, so I will do one at a time. I'll find my jacket, I'll find my wallet, put my wallet in my jacket, and I'll look for my keys. But sometimes you have already cut the task down to its smallest component part and it's still too big. What that looks like is I'm trying to find my keys. There is no way I can cut this task down into smaller bits. I'm just trying to find my keys. And I can't. And these keys take up an awful lot of space in my mind all of a sudden. My entire world just becomes the keys. And my world is missing. Like this is the one thing I can focus on right now, and I'm failing at it. Rational parts of me know that I shouldn't freak out about this, but I can almost feel my heart rate increasing. I can feel shame at my inability of doing this simple task rising within me. I can also feel an anger at myself, frustration, and I've just lost my keys. But this is my entire world right now. And the worst thing that can happen when my entire world has become so tiny that they're reduced to my keys is for reality to remind me that the world is in fact bigger than a set of keys. Receiving a phone call in that moment, or something else breaking in that moment, even being stimulated by a loud noise like a speeding car passing by my window, can absolutely wreck me, because my entire world is missing, and suddenly a brand new world is forcing itself upon me. And it's a little daunting trying to share this, because like I keep bringing up, it feels a little shameful to have to admit that I can react this intensely. This well, let's call a spade. I can overreact to something this benign, this banal. And like I said earlier, I'm probably going to dedicate an entire episode just to the feeling of shame. But I think before I can do that, I need to talk about where that shame comes from. What's really difficult to explain to people who aren't caught up in this themselves is I am fully aware this is crazy behavior. I'm fully aware that I'm not acting sanely about this, but it doesn't stop these emotions from running rampant inside me. The bad ways to cope with this is I can shout at myself, I can start crying, I can sit in a corner and just wait for this storm to pass. Of those less than good ways of handling things, sitting down and letting your emotions run their course is probably the best one. But now that I've mentioned all these bad ways of dealing with an episode like this, here is the secret to getting out of this. Ask for help. That is not easy to do. Not for everyone anyway. It was hard for me because asking for help like this required me to admit the scope of the problem. But ask for help and be open about how you're feeling, how you're doing. I mean by that, getting help for these minor tasks, because like I said earlier, for you it's a boulder crushing down upon you on your chest, but for someone else it's a pebble. And a family member or a friend can walk by and with virtually no sweat off their brow, they can just lift that pebble off your chest. But the crucial thing here is that they need to understand that this is not a pebble to you. It's a boulder. And the reason I say it's crucial to understand that is I can sometimes in my own home be on the verge of having one of these episodes of overreacting. And I've been open with my wife about what I'm struggling with, how I'm doing, how I feel. And because of that, she can tell when this is happening. And she knows when she needs to be on guard. Because it really hurts when someone else refers to your boulder as nothing. Because it's not nothing to you. It is crushing the life out of you. That is also another reason why I've tried talking openly about this in the manner I am right now. The only way one can get better with this, the only way I can get better, is by talking openly about it. And that needs to become easier. So I will try to do my tiny little part with my little message in a bottle in a sea of messages in bottles. I will try to talk openly, and hopefully someone else will find it easier to talk about this themselves. There is no shame in asking for help. There is no shame in sometimes encountering a pebble that feels like a boulder. Like I said earlier, I refer to this as my world becoming tiny. My world becomes just this one corner, this itty bitty fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the world becomes my entire world. And when you have no one to help you, well, sometimes that happens. That's unfortunate. What I'm trying to do in those moments is I'm trying to remind myself that my entire world is very tiny right now. My entire world might just be reduced solely to my keys. But this is just for this moment. This storm of emotions raging inside me and taking control of me right now will pass. When your world is that tiny, that moment can feel like it is from now on, for the rest of your existence. And it's not. But until it's not, the best thing you can do is find help. So, with that, thanks again for listening to this. I look forward to see where this project is going. So far, I am very much enjoying doing this. It's helping me keep my mental ducks in a row, forcing me to consider my progress and how I'm actually feeling. Hope that it might be doing something for you as well. But till then, like I said, thanks for listening, and see you around the world.